The morning sun cast long shadows across the mining colony of New Terra as Captain Jake Morrison walked through the main street. The smell of fresh coffee drifted from the cafeteria while miners prepared for another day of work. Children ran to school, their laughter echoing between the metal buildings. Everything seemed peaceful and normal. Jake had been protecting this colony for 3 years now. His 30 soldiers were good people, brave and loyal. They came from all over Earth to guard the families who called New Terra home. The colony produced rare metals that Earth needed badly. Without these metals, Earth could not build the ships that carried humans to the stars. Lieutenant Amy Foster jogged up to Jake, her boots making soft sounds on the dusty ground. She was young but smart, always thinking ahead. Her brown hair was tied back in a neat ponytail, and her uniform was perfectly clean despite the early hour. "Captain, we have visitors," Amy said, pointing to the sky. "Big ships, sir, really big." Jake looked up and saw them. 3 massive ships hung in the air like silver clouds. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ships were smooth and curved, nothing like the rough metal boxes that humans built. These ships looked like they could slice through space itself. "Have they said anything?" Jake asked. "They want to talk. The leader says his name is Commander Vexstar. He's coming down in 1 hour." Jake nodded. He had heard rumors about aliens in this part of space. The Zephyrian Empire, they called themselves. Reports said they were tall, strong, and very advanced. Some colonies had made deals with them. Others had simply disappeared. "Get everyone ready," Jake told Amy. "Full dress uniforms. We need to look professional." 1 hour later, Jake stood in the colony's main hall with his officers. The building was the largest on New Terra, used for meetings and celebrations. Today it felt too small. The ceiling seemed low, and the walls seemed thin. A bright light filled the doorway, and the aliens walked in. Jake had seen pictures, but seeing them in person was different. Commander Vexstar was nearly 8 feet tall, with silver scales that covered his entire body. His head was long and narrow like a snake, but he walked upright like a man. His eyes were bright yellow and seemed to see everything at once. Behind him came 6 more aliens, all tall and covered in scales. They wore no armor because their scales were their armor. In their hands they carried weapons that hummed with energy. The weapons looked deadly and efficient. Commander Vexstar looked around the room like he owned it. His yellow eyes stopped on each human face, and Jake felt like the alien was judging them, finding them lacking. "I am Commander Vexstar of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said. His voice was deep and smooth like oil poured over gravel. "You are the leader of these humans?" "Captain Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Force," Jake replied. He kept his voice steady and professional. Vexstar laughed. The sound was not pleasant. It reminded Jake of glass breaking. "Earth Defense Force," Vexstar repeated. "How amusing. Tell me, Captain Morrison, what exactly do you defend with?" Jake did not answer right away. The question felt like a trap. "We have trained soldiers and defensive positions," Jake said finally. "Show me," Vexstar said. Jake gestured to his officers. Lieutenant Amy Foster stepped forward, along with Staff Sergeant Rick Turner and Corporal Lisa Hayes. They were good soldiers, the best Jake had. But standing next to the aliens, they looked small and weak. Vexstar walked over to Rick Turner, who was the biggest human in the room. Rick was 6 feet tall and built like a brick wall. He had served in 3 different conflicts and never backed down from a fight. The alien reached out with one scaled hand and lifted Rick off the ground. He held the 200-pound soldier in the air like he was a child. "Soft," Vexstar said, setting Rick down. "Weak, fragile." He turned to the wall and raised his weapon. A beam of bright energy shot out and burned a hole clean through the metal wall. The hole was perfectly round and still glowing red at the edges. "Your weapons cannot even scratch our scales," Vexstar continued. "Your strongest warrior is like a baby to us. Your technology is hundreds of years behind ours." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept quiet. Getting angry would not help his people. "What do you want?" Jake asked. "This colony produces metals we need," Vexstar said. "You will give us mining rights to everything on this planet." You will also pay us tribute, half of everything you produce. And if we refuse? Amy asked. Vexstar turned his yellow eyes on her. Amy was brave, but Jake saw her hands shake slightly. If you refuse, we will take everything anyway. But first, we will make examples of your people. We will show the galaxy what happens to primitives who think they can stand against the Zephyrian Empire. The room was silent. Jake could hear his own heart beating. He could hear Amy breathing beside him. He could hear the soft hum of the alien weapons. You have 48 hours, Vexstar said. Gather your belongings and leave this world. Or stay. And face the consequences. The aliens turned and walked toward the door, but Vexstar stopped and looked back. Do not think of fighting us, Captain Morrison. We have conquered a dozen species stronger than yours. We have destroyed civilizations that had weapons you cannot even imagine. You are mammals, soft, emotional, weak. You care too much about each other. That caring will be your destruction. We will think about your offer, Jake said carefully. Vexstar laughed again. There is no offer. There is only our will. In 48 hours, this colony belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. The aliens left, their footsteps echoing in the hall. Jake and his officers stood in silence for a long moment. Can we fight them? Rick asked. His voice was quiet, but Jake heard the anger in it. With what? Lisa replied. You saw what that weapon did to the wall. Our rifles will be like throwing rocks at a tank. We have to try, Amy said. We cannot just abandon these people. Jake looked around the room. Through the windows, he could see families going about their daily lives. Children played in the streets. Old people sat on porches. These were good people who had come to New Terra to build something better. We need options, Jake said. What do we have that they do not know about? Not much, Rick said. They seem to know everything about our weapons and defenses. Amy was quiet, thinking. Jake had learned to pay attention when Amy was thinking. Sir, Amy said slowly, they did not search the lower levels. So, the K-9 unit is down there. Sergeant Pete Collins and his dogs. Jake felt something stir in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or maybe just desperation. They did not mention the dogs. Amy continued. When Vexstar was listing our weaknesses, he talked about our weapons, our soldiers, our technology, but he never mentioned the dogs. Because he does not know about them, Jake realized, the K-9 unit had arrived just 2 weeks ago, 12 military working dogs and their handlers, sent to help with security and search operations. They were still getting settled in the lower levels of the colony. The aliens had not seen them. What good are dogs against energy weapons? Lisa asked. I do not know, Jake admitted. But they are something the aliens do not expect. Right now, that might be our only advantage. Jake looked out the window again. In 48 hours, those families would be gone or dead. Unless he could find a way to protect them. Get Sergeant Collins, Jake ordered. And do not use the radio. I want to talk to him in person. Amy nodded and headed for the door. And Amy, Jake called after her. Tell him to keep his dogs hidden. If this is going to work, the aliens cannot know they exist. As Amy left, Jake stared at the burned hole in the wall. 48 hours to find a miracle. 48 hours to prove that humans were more than just soft, weak mammals, he hoped. The dogs would be enough. The attack began exactly 48 hours later, just as Commander Vexstar had promised. Jake Morrison stood on the colony's main watchtower as the first energy beams rained down from the sky. The alien ships hung above New Terra like hungry vultures, their weapons turning the morning air bright with deadly light. The first blast hit the power station. The building simply vanished in a flash of white heat, leaving only a smoking crater where it once stood. The second blast destroyed the communication center. Within minutes, New Terra was cut off from the outside world. All units fall back. To defensive positions, Jake spoke into his radio. His voice stayed calm, but inside he felt sick. The aliens were not playing games. They meant to wipe out everything human on this planet. Amy Foster crouched beside him, watching the destruction through binoculars. They are targeting our infrastructure first, she said. Power, communications, transportation. They want us helpless before they send in ground troops. A new sound filled the air, the roar of alien aircraft. 12 small ships dropped from the larger vessels above, moving fast and low over the colony. These ships were different from the big ones. They were built for war, sleek and deadly, like flying knives. "Here they come," Rick Turner said over the radio. He was positioned at the colony's main gate with 10 soldiers. "I count at least 60 ground troops coming our way." Jake could see them now through his binoculars. The Zephyrian soldiers moved in perfect formation across the open ground outside the colony. Their silver scales caught the sunlight as they advanced. Each one carried an energy weapon that could burn through human defenses like paper. "Fire at will," Jake ordered. The human soldiers opened fire from their defensive positions. The sound of rifle fire echoed across the colony as bullets flew toward the advancing aliens. Jake watched through his binoculars, hoping to see the enemy fall, but the Zephyrians kept coming. The bullets hit their scales and bounced off like raindrops. A few aliens stumbled when bullets hit them in the face or joints, but none fell. Their natural armor was too strong. The aliens raised their weapons and fired back. Bright beams of energy swept across the human positions. Where the beams touched, metal melted and concrete cracked. The human soldiers scrambled for better cover as their defensive walls began to fall apart. "Position 3 is taking heavy fire," Lisa Hayes reported over the radio. She was commanding the soldiers defending the east side of the colony. "We need to fall back." "Negative," Jake replied. "Hold your positions as long as possible." But even as he said it, Jake knew they could not hold. The aliens had better weapons, better armor, and more soldiers. This was not a fair fight. It was a slaughter. The first human casualty came 10 minutes into the battle. Private Danny Walsh was hit by an energy beam while trying to reload his rifle. The beam caught him in the chest, and he fell without making a sound. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Danny is down," Rick reported. His voice was tight with anger. "The kid is dead, sir." More beams swept across the human positions. Corporal Tony Garcia screamed as a beam grazed his arm, burning through his uniform and flesh. He kept fighting, using his good arm to fire his rifle, but Jake could see he was in pain. The aliens moved closer, their formation never breaking. They advanced like a machine, each soldier knowing exactly what to do. When one alien fired, another moved forward. When one reloaded, 2 others covered him. "They had done this many times before. We cannot stop them," Amy said quietly. "Our weapons are useless." Jake lowered his binoculars. She was right. The human soldiers were brave, but bravery could not stop energy weapons. Training could not pierce alien scales. They were fighting a war they could not win. "All units fall back to the inner perimeter," Jake ordered. "Fighting withdrawal. Do not let them surround you." The human soldiers began to retreat, moving from building to building as the aliens advanced. Rick Turner stayed at his position longer than the others, providing cover fire for his men. His rifle barked again and again, the bullets sparking off alien scales, but buying precious seconds for the retreat. "Rick, get out of there," Jake called over the radio. "In a minute, sir," Rick replied. "Gotta make sure the boys get clear." An alien energy weapon found Rick's position. The beam cut through his cover like it was made of butter. Rick rolled to the side just in time, the beam missing him by inches. He fired 3 more shots, then ran for the next building. The retreat was chaos. Families ran through the streets carrying what they could. Children cried for their parents. Old people moved as fast as their legs could carry them. The soldiers tried to protect them while falling back. But the aliens kept coming. Lisa Hayes was helping evacuate the medical center when disaster struck. A family with 2 small children was trapped inside when an alien beam hit the building. The front wall collapsed, blocking the main exit. "I'm going in," Lisa told her soldiers. "Lisa, no," Jake called over the radio. "The building is not stable." But Lisa was already moving. She climbed through a broken window and disappeared into the smoke and dust. Jake could hear her voice over the radio, calm and professional as she directed the family to safety. "Found them," Lisa reported. 2 adults, 2 children, coming out the back exit. But as she led the family out, an alien patrol spotted them. 3 Zephyrian soldiers raised their weapons, aiming at the fleeing humans. Lisa pushed the family behind cover and raised her rifle. She managed to fire twice before the alien beams found her. The first beam hit her in the shoulder, spinning her around. The second beam caught her in the leg, dropping her to the ground. But she kept firing, her rifle cracking as she covered the family's escape. "Lisa is down," one of her soldiers reported. "She is hurt bad, but she got the family out." Jake felt the cold feeling in his stomach get worse. First Danny, now Lisa. How many more would die before this was over? The retreat continued. The humans fell back street by street, building by building. The aliens followed, never hurrying, never making mistakes. They moved like they had all the time in the world. And maybe they did. By noon, the human soldiers were trapped in the colony's central bunker complex. It was the strongest part of New Terra, built deep underground with thick walls and multiple exits, but it was also the smallest area. 30 soldiers and 300 civilians were crammed into spaces meant for half that many people. Jake stood in the bunker's command center, looking at the tactical display. Red dots showed alien positions all around the bunker. The enemy had them surrounded. "What are our options?" Amy asked. "Not many," Jake replied. "We have enough food and water for maybe 3 days, ammunition for 1 more good fight. After that, He did not finish the sentence. Rick Turner limped into the command center. His uniform was torn and dirty, and he had a bandage wrapped around his left arm. But he was alive, and that was something. "The aliens have stopped advancing," Rick reported. "They are just sitting out there watching us." "They are waiting," Jake realized. "They do not need to attack. They can just wait for us to starve." As if he had heard Jake's words, Commander Vextar's voice came over the bunker's communication system. The alien must have fixed one of the damaged transmitters. "Captain Morrison," Vextar said, his voice smooth and mocking. "I trust you are comfortable in your little hole. We could come down and dig you out, but why bother? You will come out when you get hungry enough." Jake picked up the microphone. "What do you want, Vextar?" "I want you to understand something, Captain. This battle is over. You have lost. Your soldiers are trapped. Your weapons are useless. Your people are going to die unless you surrender." Vextar paused, and Jake could almost hear the alien smiling. "But I am not unreasonable," Vextar continued. "Surrender now, and I will let your civilians live. They will be slaves, of course, but they will be alive. Refuse, and I will kill everyone in that bunker. Men, women, children, everyone." "Go to hell," Jake replied. Vextar laughed. "Such spirit. Such pointless, stupid spirit. You mammals are all the same. You care too much about each other. It makes you weak." The communication cut off, leaving the bunker in silence. Amy looked at Jake. "What do we do now?" Jake thought about Sergeant Pete Collins and the 12 dogs hidden in the lower levels. The aliens still did not know about them. It was not much of a secret weapon, but it was all they had. "We wait for nightfall," Jake said. "Then we find out if dogs can fight aliens." It was their last hope. Darkness fell over New Terra like a heavy blanket. Jake Morrison crouched in the maintenance tunnel beneath the colony, his heart beating fast in his chest. Beside him, Sergeant Pete Collins held a leash connected to Rex, a massive German shepherd, with dark fur and intelligent brown eyes. "You sure about this, Captain?" Pete whispered. His voice was quiet, but Jake could hear the doubt in it. "These aliens have weapons that can melt steel. What can dogs do against that?" Jake looked at Rex. The dog sat perfectly still, his ears up and alert. His nose twitched as he smelled the air, picking up scents that humans could never detect. There was something in the dog's eyes, a readiness, a wildness that reminded Jake that beneath the training and loyalty, Rex was still a Volf at heart. "I do not know," Jake admitted. "But they are all we have left." The plan was simple and desperate. Jake would lead his remaining soldiers in a frontal attack on the alien positions. It would be suicide, but it would draw the enemy's attention. While the aliens were focused on the human soldiers, Pete and his canine unit would move through the tunnels and attack from behind, 12 dogs, 12 handlers. Against an alien army. Jake checked his radio one last time. All units, this is Morrison. Operation begins in 60 seconds. Remember, we are not trying to win. We are trying to survive long enough for the dogs to work. Copy that, sir, Rick Turner replied. His voice was steady, but Jake knew the big sergeant understood this might be their last conversation. Amy, you have command if I do not make it back, Jake said. You will make it back, Amy replied. We all will. Jake hoped she was right. 30 seconds, Jake whispered to Pete. Pete nodded and spoke softly to the other handlers spread throughout. The tunnel system. Luna Team, Position 1. Max Team, Position 2. Shadow and Storm, Position 3. Remember, stay quiet until the captain starts shooting, then we let them loose. Jake looked at his watch. 10 seconds. 5, 3, 2, 1. Go, go, go. Jake kicked open the tunnel exit and ran into the night. Behind him came Rick Turner and 8 other soldiers, their rifles ready. They sprinted toward the alien perimeter, screaming and shooting. To make as much noise as possible, the Zephyrian soldiers reacted instantly. Energy beams lit up the darkness as the aliens turned their weapons on the attacking humans. Jake dove behind a burned-out vehicle as beams flew over his head. Contact! Rick shouted into his radio. We have their attention. The alien response was swift and overwhelming. Dozens of energy weapons focused on the small group of human soldiers. The air filled with the smell of melted metal and burning earth. Jake fired his rifle at the nearest alien, knowing the bullets would not penetrate the creature's scales, but hoping to keep its attention. Commander, Vexstar's voice boomed across the battlefield. Foolish mammals, you cannot win. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. But Jake was not listening to Vexstar. He was counting seconds, waiting for Pete and the dogs to get into position. 15 seconds, 20, 25, then he heard it. A sound that made his blood run cold and his heart soar at the same time. The sound of a dog growling in the darkness. The first alien patrol was moving through the colony's eastern section when Rex found them. 3 Zephyrian soldiers walked in formation, their weapons ready, their yellow eyes scanning for human threats. They never looked down. Rex came out of the shadows like a nightmare made real. 90 pounds of muscle and fury launched through the air, his jaws open and his teeth gleaming in the starlight. The lead alien had just enough time to look down. Before Rex hit him, the Zephyrian scales were strong against bullets and energy beams, but they had gaps. Joints where the scales did not overlap. Soft spots at the neck and under the arms. Rex found these gaps with the precision of a surgeon and the fury of a wild animal. The alien screamed, a high, terrible sound that echoed across the colony. It was the first time any human had heard a Zephyrian scream in pain. The other 2 aliens spun around, raising their weapons, but they had never fought an enemy like this. Rex was fast, faster than they expected. He rolled away from their energy beams and circled around behind them. Corporal Danny Wright, Rex's handler, appeared from the shadows with his rifle. While the aliens were focused on the dog, Danny put 3 bullets into the gaps in their armor. The bullets could not penetrate the scales, but they hit hard enough to stagger the creatures. Rex attacked again, going for the legs this time. His powerful jaws clamped down on the back of an alien's knee where the scales were thinner. The Zephyrian fell, crying out in pain and confusion. What is that thing? One alien shouted in their own language. Unknown biological weapon, the other replied. Call for backup. But backup was having problems of its own. Luna, a Belgian Malinois, with golden fur and fierce dark eyes, had found the alien weapons depot. Her handler, Corporal Michelle Stone, watched from cover as Luna moved like a ghost between the stacked energy rifles and ammunition containers. 3 Zephyrian guards stood around the depot, talking quietly among themselves. They were relaxed, confident that no human could penetrate their defenses. They never saw Luna coming. The first guard went down without a sound. Luna leaped onto his back and bit down on the soft spot where his neck met his skull. The alien dropped his weapon and fell forward, unconscious or dead. The second guard turned at the sound of his comrade falling. Luna was already moving. She hit the second guard low, going for his ankles. The alien stumbled and fell, his weapon skittering across the ground. Luna was on him instantly, her teeth finding the gaps in his armor. The third guard raised his weapon, trying to get a clear shot at the fast-moving dog. But Michelle Stone was ready. Her rifle cracked 3 times, the bullets hitting the alien's weapon and knocking it from his hands. Luna finished what Michelle started. Within 30 seconds, all 3 guards were down. Across the colony, similar scenes played out. Max, a Dutch shepherd with a scarred muzzle and 1 missing ear, led his handler Private Kevin Ross in an attack on the alien command post. The dog moved through the alien camp like death itself, silent and deadly, Shadow and Storm. 2 German shepherds who had trained together since they were puppies, worked as a perfect team. What one dog missed, the other found. They moved through a group of 6 aliens like wolves through a flock of sheep. The aliens had never encountered anything like this. Their military training was based on fighting other technological species, enemies, who fought with weapons and formations and predictable tactics, but dogs did not fight like that. Dogs fought with instinct and pack loyalty and a fearlessness that came from thousands of years of breeding. Commander Vexstar stood in his command center, watching his soldiers panic on the tactical display. Red dots, his troops, were disappearing. One by one, emergency calls flooded the communication channels. Command, we are under attack by unknown creatures. They move too fast. Weapons cannot track them. Request immediate backup. 3 soldiers down. What are they? What are these things? Vexstar's yellow eyes narrowed as he tried to understand what was happening. His forces were being systematically destroyed by an enemy he had never seen before. An enemy that did not show up properly on their sensors. On the main battlefield, Jake Morrison and his soldiers kept up their desperate attack. But now they were not alone. The sound of alien screams filled the night air as the dogs continued their assault. "Captain!" Rick Turner shouted over the gunfire. "Listen to that! The aliens are panicking!" Jake smiled grimly as he reloaded his rifle. For the first time since the battle began, he could hear fear in the alien voices. Real fear. Pete Collins' voice came over the radio, calm and professional. "All K9 teams, excellent work. Continue the attack. Show them what Earth's children can do." The dogs did not disappoint. They fought with a courage and loyalty that the individualistic Zephyrians could not understand. When one dog was threatened, the others came to help. When a handler was in danger, his dog would die before letting harm come to him. The tide of battle was turning. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing when they could not hit their targets. Their advanced tactics failed when faced with an enemy that fought by instinct rather than doctrine. Jake looked up at the alien ships hanging in the sky. Commander Vexstar was up there somewhere, probably trying to figure out what had gone wrong with his perfect plan. Soon, the alien commander would understand. Humans were not alone in this fight. They never had been. Earth's oldest allies had joined the battle. The panic spread through the Zephyrian ranks like wildfire. Commander Vexstar stood in his command ship, watching the tactical display with growing horror. Red dots representing his soldiers continued to disappear from the screen. Emergency signals flashed across his monitors. "Sir, we need reinforcements at Sector 7, came a frightened voice over the radio. "Something is hunting us. We cannot see it until it attacks." "What do you mean you cannot see it?" Vexstar demanded. "Use your thermal scanners." "We tried, sir. The creatures are too small and too fast. They stay low to the ground and move through shadows. By the time we detect them, they are already on us." Another voice broke through the communications. "Command, this is Patrol 6. We found bodies of Patrol 4. They were torn apart by some kind of animal." "What species of animal fights like this?" Vexstar felt something he had not experienced in many years of conquest. Fear, real, cold fear that started in his stomach and spread through his body like poison. Down in the colony, the dogs continued their deadly work. They had divided into 3 packs, each one led by the most experienced dog and handler team. The packs moved through the alien positions like ghosts, striking fast and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Rex led the first pack with Danny Wright, Luna, and 2 other dogs. They had claimed the eastern side of the colony as their territory. Any alien who entered their area simply disappeared. Max commanded the second pack with Kevin Ross and 3 more dogs. They controlled the western approach, cutting off the alien retreat routes. The Zephyrians were learning that running away was just as dangerous as standing and fighting. Shadow and Storm led the third pack with their handlers Janet Pierce and Tony Garcia. This pack was the most aggressive, moving deep into alien territory and attacking their supply lines. The psychological effect on the Zephyrians was devastating. These aliens had conquered dozens of worlds. They had faced energy weapons, plasma cannons, and fusion bombs. But they had never faced an enemy that fought without fear, that attacked with teeth and claws, that seemed to enjoy the hunt. Pete Collins coordinated the attack from the colony's command center, his radio crackling with reports from his handlers. Rex team has taken out the Eastern Patrol, Danny Wright reported, moving to target the ammunition dump. Max team is engaging the Western Guard post, Kevin Ross added. The aliens are falling back toward the landing zone. Shadow and Storm are behind enemy lines, Janet Pierce said. We found their food supplies. The dogs are having a field day, Pete smiled grimly. The dogs were not just fighting. They were winning. Jake Morrison and his soldiers had pulled back to defensive positions, watching in amazement as the battle turned in their favor. The aliens who had seemed invincible just hours ago were now running scared. I cannot believe this is working, Amy Foster said, crouching beside Jake behind an overturned vehicle. 12 dogs are defeating an alien army. Not just any dogs, Rick Turner said. He was bandaging a wound on his arm but grinning despite the pain. Military working dogs, the best of the best. Through his binoculars, Jake watched a group of Zephyrian soldiers try to regroup near the colony's main gate. They formed a defensive circle, their weapons pointed outward, watching for threats. They never looked up. Shadow dropped from the roof of a nearby building like a dark angel of death. The German Shepherd landed on the back of the alien commander, his teeth finding the gap between the creature's helmet and body armor. The alien went down hard, his weapon flying from his hands. Before the other aliens could react, Storm attacked from ground level. The second German Shepherd hit the group from the side, moving so fast he was just a blur of fur and fury. Chaos erupted as the aliens tried to shoot at a target that would not hold still. Janet Pierce and Tony Garcia appeared from cover, their rifles adding to the confusion. But they did not need to fire many shots. The dogs were handling the aliens just fine on their own. In less than 2 minutes, the alien squad was defeated. Some were unconscious, others were wounded, and the rest were running for their lives. This is impossible, one fleeing alien shouted into his radio. They are just animals. How can animals defeat trained soldiers? Commander Vexstar heard the question and realized he did not have an answer. His species had built their empire on the idea that technology and training were supreme. They had never considered that courage and loyalty might be more powerful than plasma rifles and energy shields. The aliens began a fighting retreat toward their landing ships. But retreat was not easy when an enemy that could track by scent was hunting you. The dogs followed the alien soldiers through the darkness, picking off stragglers and attacking supply convoys. Luna and Michelle Stone intercepted a group of aliens, trying to carry wounded comrades to safety. The Belgian Malinois moved like lightning, her golden fur barely visible in the starlight. She went for the legs first, bringing down the strongest alien, then circled around to attack the others. The aliens tried to form a defensive position, but Luna was too fast and too smart. She used the terrain to her advantage, disappearing behind rocks and buildings only to reappear where the aliens least expected her. Michelle provided sniper support, her rifle cracking in the darkness. She did not need to kill the aliens, just wound them enough to slow them down. Luna did the rest. Max and Kevin Ross found the alien communication center. 3 Zephyrian technicians were trying to repair the equipment that Jake's initial attack had damaged. They worked frantically, knowing that without communications, their army was blind and deaf. Max approached from downwind, his scarred muzzle low to the ground. The Dutch shepherd had learned patience in a dozen battles. He knew how to wait for the perfect moment to strike. When that moment came, Max moved like a force of nature. He took down the first technician silently, his powerful jaws clamping down on the alien's neck. The creature dropped without a sound. The second technician looked up from his work just in time to see 90 pounds of trained killer coming at him. He tried to raise his weapon, but Max was already inside his guard. The dog's attack was precise and brutal. The third technician ran. Kevin Ross let him go. One terrified alien spreading panic through the ranks was worth more than one dead body. "Communication center is down," Kevin reported over the radio. "The aliens cannot coordinate their retreat." The retreat became a rout. Zephyrian soldiers ran through the colony in small groups, each one trying to reach the safety of their ships. But there was no safety from an enemy that could smell fear and track in complete darkness. Rex found a group of 6 aliens hiding in an abandoned building. Danny Wright watched from outside as his dog entered through a broken window. The sounds that came from inside made the human soldier glad he could not see what was happening. When Rex emerged, his dark fur was darker still. Behind him, 6 aliens lay unconscious or worse. The building was silent. "Good boy," Danny whispered, scratching Rex behind the ears. The German shepherd's tail wagged once, then he was all business again, nose to the ground. Searching for the next target, the alien landing zone became a scene of complete chaos. Wounded Zephyrian soldiers stumbled toward their ships, looking over their shoulders for the creatures that hunted them. Officers shouted orders that no one followed. Discipline collapsed as individual aliens focused only on survival. Commander Vexstar watched his proud army dissolve into a frightened mob. His sensors showed that most of his ground forces were either dead, wounded, or missing. The creatures, whatever they were, had destroyed his invasion force in less than 4 hours. "Sir," his communication officer said, his voice shaking, "the ground commander is requesting immediate evacuation. He says the situation is hopeless." Vexstar looked at the tactical display one more time. Red dots continued to disappear as his soldiers fell to an enemy he could not understand. These creatures fought without weapons, without armor, without technology. They fought with something his species had never possessed. They fought with absolute loyalty to their pack. "Begin evacuation procedures," Vexstar ordered. His voice was quiet, defeated. "All ground forces, fall back to the ships." But as he gave the order, Vexstar knew that many of his soldiers would never make it home. The creatures would hunt them until the very end. For the first time in his military career, Commander Vexstar was retreating from primitives. The shame burned in his chest like acid, but staying would only mean more death. The mighty Zephyrian Empire was being defeated by animals. Earth animals that fought alongside their human pack with a courage that defied understanding. In the darkness below, the dogs continued their hunt. Dawn broke over New Terra with the light of victory. Jake Morrison stood at the edge of the alien landing zone, watching the last Zephyrian soldiers stumble toward their ships. The proud army that had marched into his colony just hours ago was now a broken, frightened mob. Beside him, Ace, a massive German shepherd with black and tan fur, sat perfectly still. The dog's dark eyes never left Commander Vexstar, who stood at the bottom of his ship's loading ramp. Even from 50 yards away, Jake could see that the alien commander was a broken creature. Vexstar's silver scales were scratched and dirty. His once perfect uniform was torn in several places, but it was his eyes that showed the real damage. The yellow eyes that had looked at humans with such contempt now held only fear and confusion. "Surrender?" Jake called out, his voice carrying across the landing zone. "You are surrounded and outnumbered." Vexstar laughed, but the sound was hollow and bitter. "Outnumbered? By 30 humans and some animals? This is impossible. We are the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered dozens of worlds." "Not this one," Jake replied. Around the landing zone, the other dogs and their handlers kept watch. Rex and Danny Wright controlled the northern approach. Luna and Nichelle Stone covered the eastern side. Max and Kevin Ross watched the south. Shadow and Storm, with Janet Pierce and Tony Garcia, held the western route. The aliens were trapped. Their ships could take off, but many soldiers were still on the ground, and Commander Vexstar seemed unwilling to abandon his troops even after such a devastating defeat. "What are those creatures?" Vexstar asked. His voice was quieter now, almost pleading. "We scanned your planet. We studied your species. We found no mention of such beings." Jake looked down at Ace. The German shepherd's ears were up and alert, ready for action if needed. But there was something else in the dog's expression: intelligence, loyalty, love. "They are not weapons," Jake said. "They are family." "Family?" Vexstar repeated the word like it was foreign to him. "Dogs," Jake explained. "We call them dogs. They have been with us for thousands of years. They hunt with us, work with us, live with us. They would die for us, and we would die for them." Vexstar stared at Ace with his yellow eyes. "You created biological weapons from your own families?" "We did not create anything," Jake said. "We became packmates, brothers. When you threatened our pack, they defended it, just like we would defend theirs." The alien commander was silent for a long moment. Around the landing zone, his soldiers continued loading wounded comrades into the ships. Many aliens cast nervous glances at the dogs, their hands never far from their weapons. "This is not possible," Vexstar said finally. "Loyalty cannot overcome technology. Emotion cannot defeat superior firepower." "Can it not?" Jake asked. Amy Foster appeared at Jake's shoulder, her uniform dirty but her eyes bright with victory. "Sir, we have reports coming in from other colonies. Word of our victory is spreading fast." "What kind of reports?" Jake asked. 3 Zephyrian fleets have retreated from human space in the last 6 hours, Amy replied. "Colony commanders are asking for K9 units to be deployed to their worlds immediately." Vexstar heard this and his shoulders sagged. His great invasion was not just failing here, it was failing everywhere. The news of Earth's secret allies was spreading through human space like wildfire. "How many?" Vexstar asked quietly. "How many what?" Jake replied. "How many of these creatures do you have?" Jake smiled. "Millions. Every human world has dogs. Every human family has dogs. We have been breeding them and training them for 10,000 years. They are part of who we are." The truth hit Vexstar like a physical blow. The Zephyrian Empire had spent months planning this invasion. They had studied human technology, human tactics, human weaknesses, but they had completely missed humanity's greatest strength, the bond between species. The loyalty that went beyond blood, beyond logic, beyond self-preservation. "We surrender," Vexstar said suddenly. His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried clearly in the morning air. "Sir?" one of his officers asked. "Did you say surrender?" "I said surrender," Vexstar repeated, louder this time. "All forces, stand down, lower your weapons." The alien soldiers looked confused, but they obeyed. Energy weapons powered down. Hands moved away from triggers. The landing zone became quiet except for the sound of alien ships preparing for takeoff. Jake walked forward, Ace padding silently beside him. The other dog teams began to converge on the landing zone, forming a loose circle around the alien ships, not threatening but ready. "Why?" Jake asked as he approached Vexstar. "Why surrender now? You still have ships. You could fight your way out." Vexstar looked at Ace again. The German shepherd met the alien's gaze without fear, his dark eyes intelligent and calm. "Because I finally understand," Vexstar said. "We thought you were weak because you care about each other. We thought emotion made you vulnerable. And now?" Jake asked. "Now I see that caring makes you stronger. These creatures fight for you not because they have to, but because they want to. They would follow you into death itself." Vexstar paused, his yellow eyes moving from dog to dog around the landing zone. "We Zephyrians fight alone," he continued. "Each soldier cares only for himself. When things go wrong, we run. We abandon each other. But you never fight alone. You have allies who will never abandon you." Jake nodded. "Every human child grows up with dogs. We learn loyalty from them. We learn courage from them. They teach us what it means to be part of a pack. A pack? Vexstar repeated. Yes, I see now. You are not just humans with animals. You are one people, one family. Amy stepped forward with a communication device. Sir, we are getting calls from Earth Defense Command. They want to know our status. Jake took the device. This is Captain Morrison, New Terra Colony. The invasion has been repelled. Repeat, the invasion has been repelled. All Zephyrian forces are surrendering. The voice on the other end was filled with disbelief. Captain, please confirm? You said the invasion has been repelled? Confirmed, Jake replied. We had help from our K9 units. It turns out dogs are very effective against alien invaders. There was a long pause, then, K9 units? Dogs? Yes, sir. I recommend immediate deployment of military working dogs to all colony worlds. The aliens have never encountered anything like them. Another pause. Captain, we are dispatching a fleet to your position. Hold the area until they arrive. Copy that. Morrison out. Jake handed the communicator back to Amy and turned to Vexstar. Your ships are free to leave, but the invasion is over. Spread the word through your empire. Humans are not alone. We never have been, Vexstar nodded slowly. I will tell them. Though I doubt they will believe me until they see for themselves. Let us hope they do not have to, Jake said. The alien commander began walking toward his ship, then stopped and turned back. Captain Morrison, Vexstar said, may I ask you something? Go ahead. How did you create such loyalty? How did you make these creatures love you so much they would die for you? Jake looked down at Ace. The German shepherd's tail wagged once, and his tongue lolled out in what looked like a smile. We did not make them love us, Jake said. We learned to love them. And love, Commander Vexstar, is the most powerful force in the universe. Vexstar stared at Jake for a long moment, then nodded and continued toward his ship. One by one, the Zephyrian vessels lifted off from the landing zone. They rose into the morning sky and disappeared among the stars. Carrying word of humanity's victory back to their empire, Jake walked back toward the colony with Ace beside him. The other dogs and handlers followed, tired but victorious. They had saved New Terra, but more than that, they had shown the galaxy something important. Humans were not alone. They had allies who would fight beside them against any threat. Allies who asked for nothing in return except food, shelter, and love. Allies who had been bred not for war, but for loyalty. As they reached the colony's main street, children began to run out of the buildings. They had been hiding during the battle, but now they were free. And the first thing they did was run to the dogs. Rex, the fierce warrior who had terrorized alien soldiers just hours ago, sat patiently while a 5-year-old girl hugged his neck. Luna, who had moved like lightning through enemy positions, let a small boy pet her golden fur. Jake smiled as he watched the scene. This was what they had fought for. Not just to protect the colony, but to protect the bonds that made life worth living. Amy appeared beside him. Sir, Earth Defense Command wants a full report on K9 combat effectiveness. Tell them it is very effective, Jake replied. And Amy? Yes, sir? Put in a request for more dogs? A lot more dogs? I have a feeling we are going to need them, Amy grinned. Yes, sir. I think every human colony is going to want a pack of their own. Jake looked up at the sky where the alien ships had disappeared. Somewhere out there, Commander Vexstar was reporting to his superiors. He was telling them about the creatures that fought without fear, that loyalty that could not be broken. About the humans who were never truly alone. The word would spread. Other alien species would hear the stories. Some would stay away from human space. Others would come to test themselves against Earth's defenders. Let them come, Jake thought. Humanity had allies who would never abandon them. Allies who had stood beside them for thousands of years and would stand beside them for thousands more.